What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about an exciting topic for me. We're going to be talking about my main camera for the last few months now, the Sony A7S III. So we have Sid and Love here. We switched sides for this video. Today they're going to be asking me some questions about this camera and specifically if this camera is still good in 2025.
All right, so we're going to dive into the first question. If I'm purchasing this camera now in 2025, this camera came out around right at the tail end of 2020, so it's a few years old now. And the main thing I would want to know is that when this came out, it was a video beast. Everyone was making videos about it. It was an amazing camera. But I want to know now how it stacks up and how it holds up compared to the competition, not just in terms of the hardware, but also in terms of the software.
Yeah, so having held the more recent cameras like the Sony A7R V, for an example, this doesn't feel old in terms of hardware. It's the same consistent Sony body. If anything, it's a little bit lighter than I think the R5 is.
Okay.
So, to be honest, it feels great in the hand. It doesn't feel outdated. It still has the flip screen. This isn't the new tilting flip screen, but I came from an A7 IV. So
Same screen as that.
it's the same screen as that. It's a little bit sharper actually. There's more pixels in the actual screen. The viewfinder is still pretty up to date. I think the ones on the newer camera have a little bit more refresh rate, but the resolution wise, I mean, it's a fantastic viewfinder. It has all the buttons. The only gripe that I have is that the new bodies have that little toggle to go in between video, photo, and slow and quick mode. And this just has this dial here, which is slightly annoying because you can't do the one-handed switch in between.
Video,
So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But other than that, I've had a great experience with it so far.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because you moved from A7 IV, which is a newer camera, to the S3. So I guess you already answered it, but so other than just that toggle between the video and photo, you don't feel like there's... I guess the viewfinder on that is better than an A7
this is
IV.
it's
a more expensive camera.
This is a more expensive camera. The A7 IV is significantly cheaper. I think it's over $1,000 cheaper. So you do get some upgrades actually with this camera, being the screen is a little bit more detailed, the viewfinder is better, but that's the only thing I miss. It's just the toggle.
What do you think of the software?
Yeah, so software-wise, this is where I have a few more gripes. They did just release this past year, 2024, new updates for the A7S III, but for years it didn't have any of it. So like focus breathing compensation finally got added. The only thing that I have a problem with is that they did not add bird eye autofocus for video mode. We did shoot some footage, some bird footage with this camera, and the animal mode seemed to work fine, but it doesn't grab the eye the same way. So sometimes I'm not as confident. You can't tell as well if it's working or not. It's a minor detail, but it's still something that I would like to see in a future update.
Okay. What about, I know my FX30 has this, but it has shutter angle and some other cine features. To my knowledge, this doesn't have that.
No. A lot of people want those kind of functions, like how the FX3 and the FX30, I believe you can import LUTs into the camera so you can view them while you're filming log, or shutter angle, or cine EI, that sort of stuff. But honestly, I think there's a reason probably why they're not adding that in. It'll make this into a cinema camera almost. Like you just flip the switch.
They don't want to cannibalize their own. Sony makes so many cameras. They don't want to cannibalize all of them.
Then the only point of buying the FX3 wouldn't be the full cinema experience. It would just be the cinema body. The reason you buy the FX3 is because you want the cine EI, you want the shutter angle, you want the full cinema camera experience with the LUTs and the full package. And this is a hybrid camera, so they have so many cameras on the market. I think that's probably part of the reason why this won't get it, and it's a little bit of added work, but I don't mind it. I'm okay with it.
Okay. That transitions us perfectly to the next question then.
So, well, we all know Sony FX3 and the Sony A7S III, they're around the same price. And even the sensor is same. The only difference is the cine body and hybrid body. Why did you choose a hybrid body over the cine body?
Yeah, so I already mentioned what this is missing in terms of cinema functionality. But what you gain is you gain the traditional photography Sony experience. You still have the same Sony Alpha body. It has the same grip. It has the same viewfinder setup. It's a very familiar package. So the main reason why I didn't choose to get the FX3 instead was the viewfinder. I only have one body. I'm not running a dual setup. And so I want one camera that will do a good job of everything. And I think it's pros and cons, right? So the pros are that you gain the full hybrid experience, and hybrid is super important for me personally. If it's not as important for you guys, I mean, the FX3 has so many buttons, so many features. It has the internal fan. But for me, overheating's not been an issue with this camera. I've filmed over an hour continuously with the screen in and the screen out, and I've felt pretty much next to nothing. It's been negligible, the amount of heat that's been coming from this camera. So I've had no gripes.
That segues perfectly to the next question, because it sounds a lot like this is your only camera and you went for this body for the hybrid features, and you gave up on some features for that. So you've been using this as a hybrid camera. So let's briefly talk about the photos here. It has a 12 megapixel sensor. A lot of people buying it, they're going to look at that and they might feel a little bit disgusted by that. So how have the photos been?
So as you can tell, we might have a little bit of bias coming from the higher megapixel people over here. But that's been the main talk. Everyone's talked about this. Is 12 megapixels enough? Everyone getting this to be a hybrid body is asking, like, well, the iPhone has 48 megapixels on I think all three of their cameras on the iPhone body. So 12 megapixels is a fourth of that. Is that enough? Like, that sounds like such a low number. And to be honest, for me, at first, I was very, very skeptical on whether this was going to actually be any good for photography. If I don't crop, that's one main thing to add.
No APS-C crop mode.
Yeah, no APS-C crop mode. If I don't crop into the photos, if I'm not planning to, this looks identical to the photos I took on my A7 IV. Right? It looks amazing. It's got great dynamic range. Again, we've mentioned this before, but it's got a fantastic viewfinder on it. I don't feel any difference with the actual photography experience. The only thing that I miss is that cropping. We film eagles a lot. We take photos of eagles.
We do lots of wildlife.
We do lots of wildlife, and I'm not able to get the exact same kind of photo that I could get with my A7 IV, or that you could get with an A7R5, of course, by cropping into the photo and getting the nice, perfect frame. So it's made the experience a little bit worse in the photography department because of that. But if you frame your shots well, I don't think you'd be able to tell a difference, really.
So the verdict I'm getting is that as long as you're not using the APS-C crop mode, as long as you're not printing super large, for most people, what we're doing is we're taking photos for Instagram, for social media, for YouTube thumbnails. The photos are going to look amazing, especially with good lenses. So
Exactly. Yeah.
That takes us to the fourth question. You talked about dynamic range. So what are your thoughts on S-LOG3 Lowlight performance, and what do you like about it?
Oh man, I've used S-LOG3 on the A7 IV, but for some reason there's something about the footage coming out of S-LOG3 on this camera. I think it's probably the added dynamic range from this sensor. It's a cinema quality sensor. They use this on the FX3 and the FX6. The S-Log footage from this camera is absolutely beautiful. It just there's something different about the pop, the control that I have on the footage. I can do so much with it. There's the low light capability is fantastic. Like filming an S-Log3 at 12,800 ISO just gives me so much flexibility. I'll take that any day of the week.
it looks like you're trading off all the negatives you said about the photo performance.
Exactly.
And now it looks like there's a reason they put that 12 megapixel sensor in, and that's for the low light and for the dynamic range.
Yeah, that's for that function. You can film in S-Log, 2 dual native ISOs, one at 640 and the other one at 12,800. You just have that extra ISO that you can bump it to without that noise, right? Like that's so much added flexibility for a videographer. I just think that's one of the most useful things that I've experienced with this camera.
How is, and you talked about that 12 megapixel sensor. how's the readout speed on it? Like, how's the rolling shutter? And how's the 4K 120? Because we went out and tested that too. So how are those two things?
I've personally never used a body with better rolling shutter performance than this camera. This camera, like panning it side to side, we did a test with it. There's such minimal effect that I would think it's not a problem at all.
Okay.
Simply.
And the 4K 120?
I mean, come on. 4K 120, 10% crop, guys. 10% crop.
There's no crop. Yeah. Like
there's no crop.
Practically
you
no
get,
crop on a 4K
there's
120.
There's almost no difference in light, right? That's negligible. There's no difference in the actual look. You get the full bokeh. You don't get any noise. There's no noise difference really. It's phenomenal. Like the fact that I can take this camera, I can film it in 10-bit 422, 4K 120 at a 10% crop in body. I don't have to use an external recorder.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why this camera was called the Video Beast when it first came out, right? The Video King. Yeah. Like that's insane. And it doesn't have any heating issues all while doing that.
Then what's the verdict on here? Because you went from a Fujifilm. What Fuji did you have? The Fujifilm X-T3?
X-T30.
X-T30,
yeah.
And then you went, that was an APS-C, and then you went to another APS-C A6400, and then you went to an A7 IV, which is your first full frame camera. So now what are your final thoughts on this one? Because it's not a cheap camera at all. It's not a cheap camera. But now, what's the verdict? After it being a few years old, is this still the Video King?
The talk of the town nowadays is the FX3. Everyone's using the FX3 for content creation now. For me, I mean, it's the exact, like if you look at the FX3 footage and the Sony A7S III footage, it's identical. So I would say in that sense, people calling the FX3 the Video King, this is identical. It's just, do you want the cinema features or do you want the hybrid features? So all in all, for hybrid shooters, I would say this is still the king of video.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is, the way I see it is if you only do video and like 10% photos, get the FX3, you'll get shutter angle, you'll get the tally lights, the fan, lots of the cinema features. But if it's more of a like 75, 25, 60, 40 split, like it is for Nav, I mean, he takes photos with this still. He does thumbnails with it. We post photos on Instagram. Nothing crazy. He's not printing large and he's not cropping in too much, but just regular, solid, good, full frame photos. If you're doing that sort of split, but you still primarily do video, what I'm hearing is that this is still the Video King then.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's the verdict there. You guys heard it here from V3 Visuals. So if you've watched it all the way till the end here and you've got something of value from this video, please hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to us. The majority of you guys watching are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button. If you have any other questions or concerns regarding the A7S III or anything that you feel like we missed, this was not a technical review. We're not going over the technical specifications. This was more so just a discussion of what we feel are relevant talking points on the S3. But if you feel like we missed anything or you want anything answered, feel free to drop a question in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Give us a like too.
Subscribe.